Have you ever had one of those days where you spill your coffee and it feels like the end of the world? But then, when a real, actual emergency happens, you're suddenly the calmest person in the room? If that sounds like you, you're definitely not alone. And there's a really fascinating reason why our brains do this. So let's get into it and unpack this strange paradox.
So here's what it looks like, right? On one hand, you have a major crisis, say a fender bender or a massive project deadline at work. And you're laser focused, you're in charge, you're handling it. But then, on the other hand, a minor setback comes along. You can't find your keys, you get a text message that's kind of weird, and suddenly, you're a mess. Overwhelmed, panicking, the whole deal. What gives?
It can honestly feel like your brain is wired completely backwards. But here's the thing. Psychology tells us this isn't because you're dramatic or unstable. Nope. It's actually a sign that your mind has a very specific and pretty powerful way of operating that's just built to handle chaos way better than it handles calm. Okay, so let's tackle the first part of this mystery. Why do you become this pillar of strength when everything seems to be falling apart? Well, the answer comes down to how your brain has actually been trained by pressure in your past. The core idea here is this amazing concept called stress inoculation. You can think of it just like a vaccine. By being exposed to really high-pressure situations before, your brain has built up a kind of immunity. It's learned what a real threat feels like, so it doesn't sound the alarm for just anything. So how does this happen? Well, if you've been in unpredictable or unsafe environments, your mind was forced to develop some serious survival skills. So now, when a new crisis pops up, your brain doesn't see it as some terrifying new thing. Instead, it's almost like it says, I know this game. It enters its natural element, a place where logic takes over and your emotions actually regulate. This is a sign of what's called post-traumatic growth. Okay, so that explains the calm. But what about the panic over the small stuff? Let's flip over to the other side of this paradox, because we need to figure out why the tiniest little disruptions can feel absolutely monumental. So the first reason is basically a leftover survival skill. It's called hyper-vigilance. Your mind has been trained to be on high alert for danger, right? But that switch doesn't just turn off when things are safe and quiet. In fact, for a brain like this, feeling relaxed can actually be really unsettling. And this is exactly the problem. When there's no real danger to fight, that internal alarm system is still buzzing, and it needs somewhere to go. So all that survival energy looks for a target, and it lands on whatever's in front of you, a messy kitchen, a misplaced bill, and boom, that little problem suddenly feels like a 5-alarm fire. The second reason is something we see a lot in highly intelligent, analytical people. Your brain is an incredible problem-solving machine, It's constantly running what-if scenarios for everything. And in a crisis, that is a massive advantage. But in just regular daily life, that supercomputer brain can lead to some serious overprocessing. You find yourself replaying conversations, analyzing someone's tone of voice, noticing every little flaw. Your brain treats these small social details like critical data points that have to be solved. And that can lead to total cognitive overload over stuff other people wouldn't even blink at. And that analytical mind often ties right into our third reason, rejection sensitivity. This is really common if you've ever had experiences where you felt like you were a second choice or not a priority. Your brain basically wires itself to protect you from ever feeling that way again. So what happens is a seemingly tiny social cue, a text that takes too long to get a reply, a weird look from a friend. It isn't just a detail. To your brain, it can feel like a direct threat, a signal of potential abandonment. And that activates all your defense systems, which is what causes that sudden rush of panic or anger. And finally, reason number 4 is a big one: perfectionism. A lot of people wired this way hold themselves to impossibly high standards. You probably pride yourself on being strong, on being capable, on being, low maintenance. See, a crisis gives you a clear external enemy to fight. But the small, quiet moments of daily life, that's when your own inner critic comes out to play. And when a small thing goes wrong and disrupts the peace, it can feel like a deep personal failure, like you've failed at your one job of being no trouble. So after looking at all these pieces, what's the big picture here? Well, it's time for a reframe. It's time to see this whole experience in a new light. What if this isn't a flaw in your personality? What if it's actually a feature of your survival system? I want to be really clear about this. You are not broken. You aren't too dramatic or overly sensitive. You are built for survival.
Your mind has developed a rare, powerful set of skills that were forged in moments you probably had to face all by yourself.
So let's recap this reframe. The stress you feel over the little things, it's coming from the exact same system that gives you that superhuman calm in a crisis. Your mind is vaccinated. Your hypervigilance, your deep analysis, your sensitivity, these aren't weaknesses. They're all just different parts of an elite survival toolkit. Understanding all of this is really the first step to working with your mind, instead of constantly fighting against it. That calm you feel when everything hits the fan, that is a genuine superpower. It was forged in fire, and it's proof of how resilient you are. So the real question isn't, why do I panic over small things? The real question is, how are you going to honor that incredible strength today?